Love is our true divine nature, and our heart serves as the intersection of the spiritual and physical, connecting our soul with our body as the conduit for anchoring our divinity onto the earth plane. Embodying our divinity is the key to our ascension and to manifesting our highest destiny in this life. The teachings of the heart are alchemy. Join spiritual mentor and channel Jennifer Spohr each week on a sacred journey to lift the veil to remembering your divinity and meet other beautiful souls who are living the path of the awakened heart. Hello, everyone. I am really happy and excited to share with you as a guest on the show today, Shirley Lohmaier. She is a soul business alchemist supporting successful, heart-centered, conscious leaders to activate their soul gifts and mission and launch their soul-led business. And I can't wait to have this conversation with Shirley today and to share all of her amazing, delicious energy with all of you. Welcome, Shirley.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm so delighted to be here, really.
Yes, I'm absolutely delighted to have you with us today. And Shirley, I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about your mission and what it is that you're up to.
Sure, that's a beautiful question to start with. And I love questions about mission because I think for all of us, our missions are always so big, right? So when somebody says, what's your mission? You're like, well, it's massive. It's super scary, and it's linked to the new earth. And that's why I know that every new earth leader feels exactly the same way, right? Our missions are so big, the things that we've kind of contracted to do. And so I am an earth grid holder in the deep south of South Africa, and I work here with a golden age portal, and work with the land, and work with the guardians and guides through the land, and work with these golden age energies, right? And through that, I really help people to connect all the way back to their soul contract and their mission, not just from this lifetime, but from past lifetimes and all the, the soul gifts that we have, that we've been through in our lives, in our life experiences, and to find our unique path to then step into the new earth and to serve in the new earth and really become the guardians and the awakened souls and the ancestors of the future that we're all called to be, right? And so I'm very much about soul mission and soul destiny and finding our way in us co-creating this new earth vibration.
So beautiful. And you articulate it so well, by the way, because so much I know of what we experience, there aren't words for either. And I feel like that's part of our evolution individually as a collective during this time as well, is to really, we are tapping in, whether it's, telepathically, energetically, or in other ways, into all of our power as divine creators, which a lot has been lying dormant for so long.
Absolutely. So true. And I think that's part of the multidimensional gifts that come online, right? Especially you speak about the telepathy and really that heart communication. And so much of it is about grounding yourself to such a depth that you're really able to open your heart and you're able to start to communicate in totally different ways, multidimensionally with the heart consciousness, which is so fundamental for me. And I think that interesting when you speak about being able to articulate it. I think that's something that so many of us struggle with, especially when we then step into the context of trying to share our new earth gifts and our calling and in a business context and things like that. Because it is so kind of etheric and so multidimensional. And yet I found that the ability to articulate it really comes when you ground very deeply into the earth and you really ground literally through your feet, but also just really learn to bring your energy into this human body and to bring yourself into this life and into this life stream. And that's kind of what enables you to step through into that manifestation and ground your new earth calling, which is so important.
I love that. I feel a deep connection with the earth as well, and I am just feeling her energies as you are saying that. What would be some advice that you could provide for listeners around how they can continue to more deeply ground in here?
I think there's a lot of things that link to that, Jennifer, and it's a beautiful question. I have these kind of conversations often, and the main thing about grounding is to really disconnect from what I'm going to call matrix life, right? Which
Mhm.
is, the programming and everything that we've kind of lived with for so long, and be able to reconnect into the earth, which can physically be things like spending time in nature and, walking without shoes and things like that. But it goes deeper than that. It's actually reconnecting into the natural cycles and the cyclical rhythms
Mm.
and the part of us that is an earth creature, right? That is, animalistic, and that has instincts, that is connected in this great cosmos of consciousness, and is able to then really plug into this bigger field of unity that you feel when you feel like I'm one with all of it, you know?
Yes,
We always,
yes.
yeah, 100%. And stepping out of the mind and stepping into the body is so important for that.
Yes, I love so much that you brought up realigning with our cyclic nature. It's so interesting when we start to explore that concept more deeply. Um, we live so much from our mind in terms of our routines and our schedule. I know that that is something that I've been much more deeply embodying as well. And I don't know what your experience is, but I find for me, sleeping is a great example of this. My body will no longer adhere to an alarm clock. And it actually doesn't matter how many hours of sleep I get. If it's still dark outside, my body does not want to get up. I
It's
just find
amazing.
myself
Absolutely.
aligning, yeah, much more with the lunar cycles too.
Beautiful. I love that. I think that's so natural, right? It's almost like the more your soul drops into your body, the
Mhm.
more that part of you thirsts for you to be aligning with the things that are a natural rhythm and an evolved consciousness. Let's call it that. So anything that's natural and evolved is what's bringing life and giving life to your soul. And so the more soul you have, the more you need to be in your natural cycles, and the more optimum that is for you, and the more that connects you to your intuition and starts to bring through the real authenticity that is you, right?
Absolutely. It really is. I find it to be such a fascinating journey, the ascension journey, because we are eternal students and there are always more layers to uncover. And I feel like that's really key for our ascension is stepping into that space of curiosity.
Beautiful. I love that. I think that's fundamental. And, I think when I think of, there's been times in my life where I feel like I'm exponentially growing. When you really plug into your soul, it's like you hit this timeline where you're just blazing. You're blazing a trail, especially when you're on the ascension path. And so many of us are just being called into new levels of leadership. It's like we're just flowing with the energy of the earth, right? And when you step into that space, you have to keep open to curiosity. It's like you almost have to step into the unknown void that's formed every single time with pure curiosity and pure expansion so that you can step through into what you're wanting to manifest and co-create with the universe, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I would love for you to share because let me I'm all jumbled in my words. Let's there's just like so much that I want to talk about that it just all wants to come out at once. Um let me preface this by saying there are many of us, you know, I know you've experienced this. I am experiencing this as well. Many of us who are being called to that deeper embodiment and to embody our, you know, our path here, our highest aligned path here in a much deeper and bigger way. And I know that I have been fortunate to be connected with you. Gosh, I think it's probably been almost at least a year. I think we've even been connected longer than that, but I've noticed some changes in your journey as well. And you have been on an amazing adventure. I'd love for you to share with us more about that, like what has shifted for you and how it's impacted other areas of your life.
Sure, I'd love to share that. Thanks for that question. I think for me, so I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. So from a more macro perspective, you know, when we talk about the ascension journey, I think people sort of talk about 2012 having been quite pivotal and been sort of the first wave of things moving from 2012, right? And I feel that in that macro picture, there's now this new energy that's come in 23 and especially now 24. And it's like we're entering a new longer term cycle. So a new 10 to 12 to 15 year cycle, a second wave. And you can just feel that across every single one who's on this journey, who's in awakened service. You can feel how everybody's just rising up and the whole energy is shifting. And I felt my particular journey and my experience has been, especially towards the end of last year when I went to Egypt, I gained a really big understanding of what was happening cosmically and how the earth is really shifting into the golden age and shifting into the golden age universe, which is what's meaning that for those who have maybe before been building a bridge between the old reality and the new reality, it's like suddenly our whole foundation has shifted into the new reality. You know, if you think of it in dimensional terms, you might have been building a bridge before between 3D and 5D, for example. It's like the whole earth is now shifting to be able to accommodate 14, 15, 16 dimensions and above. And so we're all being called to expand and to hold different energy and to really almost like become very masterful very quickly, because behind us is coming the second wave of awakening that I really believe is going to land in 2024. And so for me, what's happened is I think what I really embodied in the last year was this understanding and therefore experience that when you step into your soul's, what I call your soul's highest timeline, which is this trajectory where you're just walking in the natural cycle and evolution of the energies that are coming into the earth on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. When you step into that timeline, it's almost like you're not worried about what your reality is saying about whether you have the resources or whether you have the energy, or whether your reality is showing you something. You just know and hear what your soul is calling you to do, and you focus on that vision and you just walk towards that vision. And sometimes you feel like you're running towards that vision, right? And it's kind of this accelerated energy where you just know, I'm being called to do these things for the new earth, and I'm just going to do them, and I'm embodying them as I do them. And so I think that's what's really happened for me in 2023. And it's come to this point of suddenly meeting a more cosmic version of my soul, which is at a higher vibration, which therefore at the same time requires me to really drop deeper into who I am, and drop deeper into clearing the shadow, and drop deeper into being more authentic, and especially letting go of the things that are so old paradigm, the scarcity, the competition, the victimhood, things like that. It's like when you pulled through, which I think is what you're saying to me, when you pulled through to step deeper, we have to let go of those things, and we have to heal our ancestry, and we have to take responsibility, and we really have to step into being the creators that we are and the masters that we are, right?
Yes, absolutely. We do. Yeah, all of that, the scarcity, the competition, the perceived constructs that even, by the way, those who have been on their spiritual path for a while, you know, and I've experienced this too, feel like we still need to operate within them, you know. I think you referred to it as the matrix, and I do too. You know, it's really stepping beyond all of that, because all of that is really a direct inversion of who we are as creator beings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel strongly, Jennifer, and I don't mean this as to be fear-based in any way, but I feel strongly that that inversion is going to crumble very quickly, you know, especially in this year, as the light is rising so incredibly, and as actually the earth grids are really coming online to support us at this higher level of our angelic and soul selves, that there's going to be radical disintegration. But at the same time, the new is birthing, right? And the new is growing through that. And so I think it's really important that people focus on building the new and step away from the distraction of the old.
Absolutely. I am on the same page as you. You know, when you were earlier in our conversation, you referenced that next wave of awakening right now, you know, and then you talk about the crumbling. That's exactly what's happening. It reminds me of, if you've ever seen a tower tarot card. It's like, have you ever seen one of those?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's a lot like
exactly.
that.
That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, it's a lot like that. I mean, all of the, you know, turmoil that's happening on this planet, it's absolutely, you know, horrific and very jarring, obviously, but it's understanding, you know, the root of much of that is happening. It's because these constructs and these inverted ways of being just are past due, you know, to change. It's like, even though we as humans have free will, there are still the laws of the universe, of the cosmos, right? And we can only exist against the nature of things for so long before a time comes, I believe, that it just crumbles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The ultimate divine plan is always overarching and will always win, right? Which I think is what you're saying. And that's 100% right for me. And I feel like there was times in, you know, 2020, 2022, even some of last year, where it was still like it was still like this voice saying, make your choice, make your choice. Now I feel, for me, it's like the choice is made. It is new earth. It is exactly that. It is aligned to the golden age. And yes, the reality is maybe taking a little bit of time to catch up, but it is here, you know?
Yes, I've personally had visions of a much different scene in terms of societal constructs, not all that long from now.
Absolutely. I believe you. Absolutely. 100%.
It's definitely happening in our lifetime here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what we're preparing for, right?
Yes, absolutely. And what we're talking about at a collective level applies at an individual level as well. You know, if someone is feeling like it's constantly hard or feeling exhausted, you know, really understanding, because there's a difference between a challenge, right? Moving through a challenge versus moving against the grain, you know, which I think is what causes that exhaustion. And it's the same for us in our individual journeys, is that if we continue to push against the grain for so long, what's ultimately meant to unfold for us at a soul level will come back around.
Mm, mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. We can do it with ease, or we can do it kicking and screaming, right? But it's going to happen. And
Yeah.
I think the point, what I love of what you're alluding to is, like, I feel that the energetics of the new earth are becoming so strong now that our alignment is becoming more and more necessary and more vital. And actually it's becoming fine-tuned, and that's what mastery is about. So more and more, any little bit of being out of alignment is having an adverse effect in our lives, whether that's because we're physically exhausted, whether that's because we suddenly feel like we have a health issue, or whatever it is. It's like it's less forgiving. The energetics are less forgiving towards being out of alignment at this point in time.
Oh, absolutely. What felt maybe like a little bit niggly before is that calls a lot louder now.
Shouting in your ear.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. I do feel guided to mention, I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well. It takes practice, it takes, I believe, momentum is so key to making the sustainable shifts that we're being guided to make. And it's so important to be consistent, to create and continue to build that momentum in terms of stepping out of that programming and those constructs. I mean, the topic of surrender is a great example. Change is another good one in, where many of us have been programmed, is that surrender in of itself. Like, if you, at least in the US anyways, if you look up what does that word mean in the dictionary, it implies defeat. Surrender implies defeat, and the divine truth of what it means is the direct opposite of that.
Absolutely.
Same thing with
I
change.
really hear you.
We speak about change in the context of many people, fear change. That is also a programming that is a direct inversion of what change actually is, which is the divine essence of who we are as creator beings. So it's very interesting how much around us is inverted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's also why I think, circling all the way back to what we said right at the beginning, that's why cyclical living is so important, because when you're in cyclical living, you're so much more closer to the natural world and the natural way of being, which is constant rebirthing, which is change, right? It's the divine feminine principle of rebirth, death and rebirth. And that's when you're more aligned to your natural cycles, that's when you can face these things much easier. And I think you're less you're less kind of falling off your feet, or feeling like you're not able to hold the energies that are coming and that are shifting and changing you.
Yes. Something else I'd love to ask you about, or to touch on, is relationships. Because relationships, as you know, can be some of our greatest teachers, and many people have challenges in terms of actually like letting go some of those relationships, right, that are no longer a vibrational match. What would your, and if you'd like to share your experience, I'd love that too, but what is your advice on how to surrender to those changes and to navigate them with more ease and grace?
That's a beautiful topic to talk about. I think it's so relevant right now, because I think so many relationships more at a soul contract level are actually coming to an end, right? So I think what I've found for myself is the best way to navigate something like that that's coming to an end is to reach the place of neutrality towards it, right? And that's the place where your heart is open, where you're really able to see clearly what's going on and what the adverse effects are, what's good about it, what's bad about it, and especially what you're being called to do with regards to that relationship. And reaching that place of neutrality is quite tough, because you've got to go through all the emotions and, the shadow of why you may be dependent in that relationship, or what it is that's keeping you tied to it. And so I always go right to the point of the soul contract with someone, if I'm working with them about relationships. Like, it's getting to this depth of understanding what is the contract that's holding you and that person in relationship, and what needs to be resolved or cleared or completed or understood at that level. And that's at quite a deep, almost like a shamanic level, right? Because our soul contracts are really held within the earth. And the reflection of that is then being able to zoom out and get to this place of almost detachment. Like our soul can be very detached from our physical circumstances, because it's the human that's experiencing those circumstances, but the soul can see this wide, huge view and understand from lifetimes why you've been in a contract or why you haven't, or why you should be in a relationship or why you shouldn't, for example. And so I think it's really stepping through any of the energies that are either in our mental body or in our emotional body that are linked to the relationship, so that we can see that much bigger picture and understand it from a soul perspective, which is what then can bring us to a place of resolution and completion, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it completely makes sense. Shirley, what else are you feeling guided to bring forward?
Sure. I think I'd just like to really kind of bring it all together. You know, we've touched on we've touched on a very big picture. We've touched on personal journey and personal experience and personal mastery. And I think what's really fundamental is to understand and to know that it is your inner landscape that is reflecting everything, right? And so the journey of ascension is first and foremost an inner journey, and it's actually equally a journey of descending down into that darkness, descending down into the depths, descending within to find the essence of that creation space, which is really the womb space, which holds your creation, right? And it's not necessarily feminine or masculine. It's not about it being a womb, you know, it's an energetic space of birthing. And so all the things that lead to that place of really walking this ascended path in with the most grace possible, and in the joy and bliss that we are entitled to as our birthright, is about doing the work that is shifting your inner landscape more and more and more, so that you're aligned and able to walk with the energies of ascension. And that is your meditative practice. That is your somatic breath work. That is your healing work. That is all these things of facing the shadow and facing the parts of us that are not necessarily the prettiest, right? But they really are the depths that then allow us to ground our earth so deeply that we can walk in the fullness of who we are.
Absolutely. I am completely aligned with you on that. That's been my experience as well. And truthfully, I feel like much of that component of our journey is still papered over in, a lot of spiritual communities and the personal development industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. Because it's not glamorous and sexy.
No, it's not a sexy journey. But it is a fulfilling journey, and there's nothing like feeling unconditional love in all the cells of your being. There's nothing like it.
Absolutely. It's pure bliss, but it comes with taking full responsibility. And I think that's what it's about, right? That's what mastery is.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Taking full responsibility, living your truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And but I think the beautiful part of it is that because it starts as an inner journey, it's also so much easier to start. You know, like for me, aligned action comes from an inner place. And so I always encourage people who are still in this place of fear, or still feeling really stuck, or, not really knowing, it can be quite a dark night of the soul when you wake up and you realize everything that's going on. When you're in that space, is to start with the inner journey, because that's what gives you the strength. When you see this huge vision of what you think you're called to do, and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to do that, Start with the inner journey. Start with dropping inside. Start with getting to know that inner landscape. And that's what will give you the fuel, the authenticity, the strength, the embodiment. And that's what will open the path every single time.
Yes, creating that space too is so important to allow that, to come in.
Absolutely. 100%.
Shirley, if someone is feeling guided to connect with you more deeply, where is the best place for them to go?
Okay, so I'm going to have a link or two underneath our session, which kind of has my link tree and shows everywhere that you can find me. But if you would like to experience a little bit of me and my work, every Friday at 2 p.m. GMT, I actually hold a soul embodiment session in my Facebook group, which the link will also be down below. And it's my way of sharing what that inner journey looks like. And for me, that's the starting place. Like if you can start embodying your soul, that's what's going to open the window and the doorway to you stepping into the new earth and to stepping into the higher version of yourself and your higher self leading your ascension journey. So it's generally about 20 to 30 minutes every week. And yeah, it's a free session that you can join in.
That sounds delightful. And yes, for
Thank
everyone
you. It
listening,
truly is.
yes. And for everyone listening, there will be all of those links, as Shirley said, will be mentioned or included in the show notes. Shirley, what an absolute treat. An absolute joy to have this conversation with you. And I feel like we went deep. At the same time, it's like we barely scratched the surface of some stuff. It's definitely, I know, giving so many food for thought and amazing direction to take themselves in as well. So thank you for that.
Fantastic, Jennifer. Thank you. I really, really loved it. It's been wonderful to be with you today.
Thank you for listening to Path of the Awakened Heart. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or pathoftheawakenedheart.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about living with an awakened heart and navigating your ascension journey, visit me at jenniferspore.com.